It just means you'll come forward in the queue. And you're also very welcome to ask questions over the chat function, which we'll keep an eye on. And please feel free to have your videos on if you feel comfortable. Otherwise, just mute your mic unless you're talking. So as I said, we're here to talk to you about a career at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Our graduate application process opens for the 2020 and 2023, so November 2020 and February 2023 intake tomorrow. So this is a well-timed discussion with you all. We're looking for a broad range of applicants. So we welcome applications from graduates from all walks of life, perspectives and degree disciplines. Your university grades are not the be-all and end-all, and we want to hear about your interests, your motivations, creativity, and most importantly, how you would contribute to MFAT's goals and values. So very keen to hear from you all today. I'm conscious that we'll have people on this call who may have been interested in joining MFAT for some time, and others that have dropped in to hear what we're all about. So a range of different interests from those joining today. So in terms of the structure, we'll run through intros with myself and our other panel members. Then I'll pass to Adi just to talk through the application process, what that looks like, and then we'll dive straight into the Q&A session. So in terms of introductions, as I say, ko Rachel Spencer toko ingoa. I've been at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade for 9 years. Prior to joining MFAT, I did my undergraduate law and politics degree in Dunedin, did a stint overseas, finishing off my politics degree, and then did my master's in international law at Auckland University, before working for a year in a policy consultancy firm and then finally joining MFAT. So since I've been at MFAT, I've done a few rotations and one offshore posting. So I started in our environment division on our Antarctic desk, and then after 2 and a bit years, rotated into our Americas team, focused on the Canada and America trade and economic relationship, before being posted offshore for 3 years at the New Zealand High Commission in Ottawa. I've been back in New Zealand since September 2020, where I'm now a senior policy officer in our COVID policy and coordination division. I've been working on all things COVID. So that's a little about me. I'll hand over to my colleague Atanas to introduce himself.
Thanks, Rachel, and kia ora koutou everyone. My name is Atanas. I joined MFAT in 2021 as part of the graduate cohort. So I've been at the ministry for just over a year now. Before that, I studied law and politics and public policy at Victoria University and came straight to MFAT. I am also in the COVID policy and coordination division with Rachel, and it's my first rotation at the ministry. I've really enjoyed my time in CPCD, doing lots of very interesting work as part of our COVID response, and I'm sure we're happy to talk more about it later on if you guys have questions. Yeah, I don't have too many interesting stories like some of the others on the call, but hopefully over the coming years I will get to make some of those really interesting and cool memories. So I think I'll pass on to Adi to introduce yourself.
Kia ora koutou everyone. My name is Adi Barnard and I'm currently the lead advisor at our the MFAT Auckland office. I've been in the ministry now for about 13 years and joined straight out of university where I did a law and commerce conjoint degree at Victoria University, and really got involved in a whole bunch of stuff at university, including the Law Students Association and the UN Youth Association and other groups like that. In the ministry over the last while, I've worked in Wellington in our economic division, in our Middle East and Africa division. I've been a policy officer in our chief executive's office and also in the seconded to the minister's office in the Beehive, where we normally have 2 or 3 staff members in the minister's office. And I've been overseas to Cairo and Riyadh, and also most recently as the Deputy Head of Mission in Seoul in Korea. One thing about MFAT is most of the time, it's like any other job. You're sitting behind a computer, you're answering emails, and you're trying to stay on top of all the writing and reading and talking in meetings you have to do. And then other days you have some awesome experiences that are just unbelievable, like visiting an irrigation project in the desert in Egypt, or flying in a Black Hawk at sort of treetop level over the demilitarized zone in Korea. So it's a really varied and utterly fantastic and interesting place to work. But we will talk a bit more about that, I'm sure, during the Q&A as well. And I'll pass on to Talia now. Thank you.
Yeah, kia ora koutou, talofa, malalawa lesofu. My name is Talia Siatanga, and I'm also a UC grad. I am the newbie, the absolute rookie of the group. I'm only in my third week at MFAT. So I did law at UC, and I also did arts, majoring in philosophy, minoring in political science. And then I stayed on to do a Masters of International Law, and Chris Riffle was my supervisor. And while studying, like a lot of you probably, I did internships around the place. And last summer, I did an internship through the Tuputai internship program at MFAT, and I was placed in their corporate legal unit. And then reapplied through their March application process last year, and started this year, February, 3 weeks ago. And I've been placed in the Pacific, Melanesia and Micronesia division. And I'm on the Vanuatu and Kiribati bilateral desks. And so I get to do some really cool stuff around foreign policy, but also get to work on some really meaningful development projects in the Pacific, which, pulls on my heartstrings, which is really, really nice. And I don't have, I'm only in my third week. I don't have any crazy cool MFAT stories for you yet. I have MFAT dreams. I would love to go on a posting to Seoul, actually, where Ari was. And not just because I'm a BTS stan. I genuinely am very interested in our bilateral relationships in the Asia Pacific region. So yeah, that's me. And yeah, pass back to who was going to take it. It's Rachel or Ari?
I can jump in and talk about the timeframes a bit if you like. So as Rachel said at the beginning, the applications open on the 4th, so tomorrow, and close midnight on the 25th of March. It's an online application process that will take you about 20 minutes. And very helpfully, the online application form sets out all the things that we're most interested in hearing from you. So there's no guesswork about, what you should be putting in or leaving out. We'll take you through that process. You'll also need a CV and your unofficial transcript. And please answer all the questions you can to the best of your ability. That then feeds through into the second stage, which is the online assessments part. And that'll be to help identify whether you have the key skills and behaviors that we're looking for in our grads. And as we said, we're looking for a wide range of people. So this one will look at your cognitive ability, abstract, verbal, and numerical, bit of a, how good are you at doing stuff. Then there'll be a video introduction, which will be a short video from you to us answering a few questions they'll be sent through to you. And there'll be a written exercise as well as part of that, where you'll get a bit of a taste of the kind of work that we do and that we'll be expecting from you. If you then make it through into the next stage, there is an individual interview process, and that'll be a 45-minute competency-based interview with a panel based on skills and attributes that we're looking for and that are set out in our advertisement and the position description. That then will lead to another process, through our selection, and offers will be made in early to mid-May. then we will either look at a November this year or a February next year start date, depending on your studies and your preferences. So yeah, that's the process. Back to Rachel.
Yeah, thanks, Adi, and thanks everyone for introducing themselves. We're going to go straight into the Q&A now, because we've, from experience, we're keen to hear what you guys would like us to talk about, or any questions around the application process. We're happy to talk about the work in more detail, what to expect as a new graduate in MFAT, and as I say, answer any questions around the application process as well. So hopefully someone wants to kick us off. Don't be shy. Either raise your virtual hand, or you can pop a question into the chat. If there aren't any questions, we can launch into a bit of a chat about what to expect when you first start as a grad at MFAT. If anyone else sees any hands up, let me know. I'm not seeing any hands, any immediate questions, in which case, Atanas, are you able to talk to the group a little bit about your experience as a graduate and through the Foundations program?
Happy to do so. Thanks, Rachel. So as I mentioned, I've just completed my first year at MFAT, and as part of your first year at MFAT, you are part of something called the Foundations program. This involves you and the rest of the graduate cohort that comes in with you, completing a bunch of basic seminars, programs, and foundational courses that will introduce you to the world of foreign policy, development, and trade, basically. And it's a really great and unique program that I think is quite unique to MFAT. Things that you get to do, courses on networking, influencing, negotiation skills, things like introduction to trade policy, international law, development work. You even get to go on a trip to the Otago Foreign Policy School, which holds a 2-day seminar every year. So they put you on a plane with the rest of your graduate cohort, and you stay in a hotel together and go to this really cool conference. And not only is it great for formal learning to make sure that you're across the basics that you'll need for a career at MFAT, but it's a really great way to get to meet the rest of your cohort and create those bonds and relationships, which will be very important for your career at MFAT and for your future in diplomacy. So yeah, does anyone have any questions around the Foundations program? It spans a whole year. I actually still haven't finished it just because we've had some disruptions with COVID. But yeah, ideally it lasts from about February to February, and you have about 1 to 2 seminars and courses a month.
Thanks, Atanas. Feel free to ask any questions on the Foundations program. I see we have a question in relating to whether MFAT offers summer internships for students in their penultimate year of study or just graduate roles. Talia, would you like to have a chat about our internship programs?
Yeah, so yes, they absolutely do offer summer internships. I actually did do a summer internship just before my final year of completing my master's, but they do offer summer internships every year. And if you just Google the MFAT internships site, they've got a little website that lists the different internship pathways that they have, because they have different internship pathways. If, for example, you're really interested in law, you can go through the government legal network pathway. Or another good way to find out about those opportunities is just to email graduaterecruitment@mfat.gov.nz. I'll pop that email in the chat soon. But yes, it's not just graduate roles, it's also summer internships.
Thanks, Talia. Any other questions? I know this is the last session of the day, so you're probably all questioned out. But definitely want to give you guys the opportunity to ask us. Otherwise, we can give you a bit of a sense of what a career at MFAT can look like, if there aren't any burning questions. Adi, do you want to have a go at that?
That sounds like my cue. So what you would have heard from from us is that we have rotations, and you move around a lot between different roles within the ministry. So it's based around the idea that to build a good diplomat, you need a broad range of skills and experiences, and that prepares you really well for your offshore roles, where you're often working as part of a small team. So a lot of our embassies have only 2 people, 2 New Zealand diplomats based there, or some of our larger ones like in Washington or Beijing will have about a dozen or more diplomats. Now, when you're in those offshore roles, you'll be doing everything from some of the, fixing a thing or two around the office, through to public diplomacy, trade, economic work, political work, running events, looking after staff and admin and health and safety and all sorts of things. So having that diversity of roles back in New Zealand really sets you up for those overseas jobs. And it's really up to you to decide how to run your career. Often the first job, as Talia and Atanas might know, is a bit of a lottery. So I ended up in the economic division, for example, but that's usually for a year to 3 years, and then you move into a different role. And what some people do is they try and specialize either in something technical. So for example, you could be an excellent trade lawyer, and so you want to spend more of your time working in roles that are related to trade law. So maybe economic division, maybe the trade law unit, maybe in our general trade division, and you aim for a posting in Geneva working at our WTO office, for example. Otherwise, you might be more of a security specialist. So you can think more about our international security and disarmament team, maybe go and do a posting in New York working on disarmament issues, or go to the Middle East or a place like that. And what some people combine is you look at a geographic specialty. So you might be a Spanish speaker and therefore focus on, say, parts of Europe and South America as your posting area. But at the same time, you're an environmental specialist. So you can work in our climate change and sort of environmental topics, much like Rachel working on the Antarctic program. So the career is definitely something that you can build based on your interests, but also you get given a lot of opportunities along the way to put you in an area that you might never have thought about. And South Korea for me was a little bit like that, where I applied for a role based on the size of the job and the kinds of office management and staff management opportunities that it would give me. But it exposed me to not only BTS and the wonder that is Korean K-pop and Korean food, but the work was fantastic, and it was really interesting getting that perspective from North Asia after having spent most of my time up until that point on Middle East issues. So it's very broad and varied and interesting. And I wonder if one of the others may want to comment on that as well.
Maybe just to add something onto your comments, Adi. One thing that kind of excites me most about MFAT as well is so you're encouraged to change your job every 2 years. So if you're a person who likes a lot of variety in their work, or even just gets bored quite easily and likes to really take a deep dive into one topic for a short period of time, MFAT's such a great place because you're encouraged to get a really broad range of experience. And the ministry really appreciates when you do have that broad range of experience, because it makes you a better diplomat when you understand New Zealand's interests from a variety of angles. And when you go and represent New Zealand offshore, you can really look at issues from a lot of different angles. So yeah, something to keep in mind as well is that you never really get bored because you're doing something new every 2 to 3 years.
Thanks, Adi and Atanas. We've got a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is, are a number of international law courses required for this role? And so the short answer is no, absolutely not. In fact, you don't even need a law degree to apply for MFAT. I mean, hopefully you'll have a personal interest in foreign policy and the international stage and scene, but it is not a prereq in terms of papers. And then the second question was finishing a law degree at the end of 2022, but still need to complete the honours dissertation in 2023. Should you apply for this intake or wait until 2024? That's a good question. Does anyone, Atanas?
Renee might have a more official answer, but I just know from personal experience there was someone within my cohort finishing their masters in their first year at the ministry, and so had an arrangement with their manager to work on their masters, finish up their dissertation while also studying at MFAT. So I think it kind of depends on the situation, and probably something you can email recruitment about and outline the specifics of your situation, and they can help you out with that.
Yeah, and it depends on the kind of effort that would be required to do the honours papers. But certainly people do study alongside working. And for example, I did my legal professionals after joining MFAT. So for admission to the bar. So you can do that as well. And I actually did that a couple of years into my time at the ministry.
I just add, I did mine last year as well, as soon as I started at the ministry and got support from the ministry. So yeah, it's possible to either do it straight away or later on.
There's another question here, 2 questions. The first one is, does the internship have to be completed in Wellington? Yes, is my understanding. We like to meet our people and work with our people, and the internship is based in Wellington. The second question is around, does MFAT pay for profs? There's probably a technically correct answer on this, but MFAT does have a study allowance for staff, so that's available for staff members. I think it's $1,000 to $2,000 a year, and a case can be made that the study you are doing is directly relevant to your role. So I know in the case of people that have gone into our legal team, and guys jump in and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think there has been precedent where MFAT has contributed towards paying for professionals. I think it's a bit more than that full cost, but others who are more Atanas.
So my experience last year was, I'm not in a legal role at the moment, but I had part of my fee for profs paid for in a reimbursement once I completed profs. From what I understand, if you are in a legal position at MFAT, and again, that's kind of a luck of the draw almost, there might be a different arrangement with your profs, because you'll also probably need a practicing certificate. But if you're in a non-legal role, which most of them at MFAT are, you don't need to be admitted to the bar, and you only get kind of partial support for your profs. Yeah. But
I think
I was saying that you can always move into a legal role in future where it might need profs and admission. So there's opportunities to rotate into those types of roles if you're interested in that. Sorry, Adi.
Oh, Talia, did you want to speak first?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in because I actually completed my profs before starting MFAT, and that was a question that I was weighing up. I was like, should I wait to start MFAT and then, do the reimbursement policy thing, or should I just do it on my own before starting? And I decided to do it on my own before starting, and then go through the admission process this year, because I do eventually want to head into some sort of legal role, maybe, but I just want to have that option there. But I think that personally, it's up to you, but I'm glad that I got profs out of the way before starting into my role, because it means that I can now just focus on getting to learn more about the foreign policy and development space and really building my skills there. And yeah, so it's up to you, but don't stress too much about that if you complete it before or during. Yeah.
And just to add, we have some very specific roles in the ministry where you need to be a lawyer with a practicing certificate, and that'll be particularly in our what we call our corporate law unit. So that's the one, also, where I think, Talia, you did your internship, right? So that's very much their function is to advise the ministry on its legal obligations and responsibilities. But on the other hand, we have a lot of law-related or legal jobs, for example, trade law unit, which looks mainly at our trade obligations internationally. They review all of our trade agreements and so on, and manage our WTO engagements and obligations. And also the international law team, which does a lot of work on our treaty and arrangement and so on work. That, as far as my understanding is, does not require a practicing certificate, because you're not engaging necessarily, you're not purporting to provide legal advice in that sense. What you're doing is advising the government on the policy and the regulations and the law around international law, which is different. So there are different roles that would have different requirements within the ministry.
So we've got a couple more questions coming in. So we've confirmed admission to the bar is not required. So another question here, beyond internship period, are most all MFAT roles in Wellington, or are they spread across the motu? So we have a Wellington office and an Auckland office in New Zealand. So as Adi said, he's currently working in our Auckland office. But the biggest office, if you will, is Wellington based. We do have a flexible working policy, which has been fantastic for work-life balance. So that means that we do have staff members who are incidentally working across New Zealand, but the two offices rather, are in Wellington and Auckland. There's another question here. Does the position require NZ citizenship, or would permanent residency also be sufficient? So my understanding is that you do need to be a New Zealand citizen to be in one of the graduate roles. That's in order to maintain a security clearance. But there are a number of other roles outside the policy stream that would be open to those who are not New Zealand citizens. Please jump in if I'm in the correct panel.
The only thing to add there is that it's also sufficient if you have submitted your citizenship application to DIA. So if you're in the process of becoming a citizen, then that's okay.
Thanks, Ade. There's another good question here. What's MFAT's preference with regards to hiring fresh graduates versus, for example, someone with a couple of years under their belt in a large law firm? So the graduate program is the graduate program, in that we are hiring graduates straight out of university. Both Atanas and Talia can attest to that. But we do also welcome what we call lateral hires through who are at different stages in their career. Some may choose to apply under the graduate program, and that's a personal decision. MFAT does run other recruitment rounds for more experienced policy officers, so coming in at the level above graduate or beyond. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything.
Yeah, can I jump in on that question?
Please.
Yeah, that's a good question, Jack. You might be in a position, I'm not sure, a similar position to what I was, where I was looking at either going into a big law firm or joining MFAT. I had two offers on the table. And I had a lot of discussions with our careers advisors here at MFAT, and I also had discussion with the HR people at that law firm. And the conclusion I came to is that the opportunities to enter in as a fresh graduate and to join the ministry and get into the ministry are much more limited overall than to move into private practice in large law firms. And so, potentially, I was like, if I didn't take this opportunity from MFAT, I was worried that it might be more difficult to enter in laterally or at a more senior level than it is at a graduate level. So that's why I took this role over going into a large law firm. But really, at the end of the day, if that's something that's on your mind, if you're weighing which way to go, just ask about, what you value and what kind of environment you like working in the most. So, yes.
I might just add on here as well with some kind of personal experience. So I left uni just over a year ago, and had lots of friends that went into the legal profession straight away, into either a big law firm or smaller boutique law firms. And I think the one thing that I really enjoyed about MFAT is you do really interesting work, and you aren't treated badly. Basically, I have so many friends who went to work for law firms who work insanely long hours, get underpaid, and are basically just having to grind their way through their 20s on this possibility that they're going to make as a partner later on in life. And for some people, that is what drives them, and that's totally fine. But if you're someone like me who really values having work-life balance and having more time to enjoy things outside of work, I'd really recommend looking at somewhere like MFAT, because while you might have to work long hours at certain times, you get time in lieu, and it's recognized that you work additional hours, and you're not expected to work 50, 60-hour weeks, especially as a graduate or as a person new to the ministry. And that's something that really sold me on MFAT and starting a career at the ministry.
Thanks, Atanas. A couple more questions. Justin's asked, is there any tikanga aspect in MFAT? Panel, who would like to take that? Adi, do you want to give it a crack?
Sure, happy to, but welcome comments from others too. Justin, I'm assuming you mean sort of perhaps what is the content or the importance that's attached to sort of Maori culture and aspects in our work. That is an area, we have sort of a formal Maori policy unit within the ministry that provides a lot of our internal knowledge and advice around tikanga Maori and the Maori sort of world. But increasingly, that's a really important and key part of what we do both domestically and overseas. Domestically, in terms of the ministry being a good treaty partner, and how we reach out to stakeholders in iwi. And then on the other hand, when we're overseas, we represent New Zealand, and Maori culture and language and experience is a very big part of that. So you'll see that that's emphasized a lot in our outreach, public diplomacy. We have a lot of te reo training within the ministry, and that's a growing area of expertise. And particularly when you're overseas, you bring a lot of, you incorporate a lot of Māori elements into what we do. So through waiata, or we've often made use of, for example, kapahaka groups that are based overseas to come and support outreach that our embassies might be doing, or events that we do. So I think it definitely is a growing area. It's an area we need to focus more on. And I know the ministry is very keen to look at grads who have that experience and bring a strong understanding of tikanga, te reo, and not just from Māoridom, but also our Pacific cultures, our and other diaspora here in New Zealand, other language skills and so on are very valued as well. But others might want to jump in too, if you like.
Yeah, I can add a few points. MFAT actually lists knowledge in Maturanga Māori as being something that they really value in the application process. So definitely, if you have knowledge in that area, put that down, because that is a massive, massive, massive plus. I believe that there's, in terms of more generally, there's some te reo classes that are open. There's a waiata. I think it's every lunchtime on Wednesdays. I actually can't remember. Yes, every lunchtime on Wednesdays. And in terms of incorporating, tikanga and protocol and things like that, one example I could think of is last year, MFAT hosted APEC, massive international event, and the Māori Policy Unit, MPU, coordinated with other teams to open that with the pōwhiri and things like that. So yes, but it is definitely an area that MFAT can grow more in. So if you bring specific skills and expertise in that, awesome.
I might just add as well, on top of bringing already existing expertise, also I think like a willingness to learn and engage is really important too. And just with personal experience, I've had support from the ministry to do a Te Māori course outside of work through Wānanga o Aotearoa. I'm not sure if some of you have heard of the Institute. So I've had arrangements where if I have the homerai or Wānanga, then I get time in lieu in recognition of that, and additional study support. So yeah, if you're willing to engage in that and really better yourself in that, there's a lot of support that the ministry can offer as well.
Thanks. And as a team, and teams across MFAT have different initiatives in this space as well. So for example, in the team that Atanas and I are in, we have a weekly team te reo kōrero. So that's just an opportunity for staff to practice their te reo and learn from each other. So it's definitely something that as a team, Atanas and I have been really enjoying. So we have another question here, a very good one. What is the culture like at MFAT beyond the quality of the mahi? Is it a good place to work? Excellent question. Who wants to take that? I don't want to dominate the mic.
That sounds like one of those ones each of us can offer a perspective on. So
yeah.
Talia, you're the newest. Do you want to say your first impressions?
Yes, my 3 weeks. I've personally, I think I've been very lucky in the particular teams that I've been able to work in. So interning for the corporate legal unit, that was a small unit of 5 highly specialised public lawyers. And they had a really, really awesome culture, a great manager. And then within Pacific, Melanesia, Micronesia division, again, my direct unit manager is really lovely. I feel like there's been a lot of wraparound support in my first 3 weeks, people checking in, especially with current world events. It's a bit of a crazy time to join the ministry with protests and COVID and World War III potentially starting. There's been a lot of checking in with me. So I've found it really good. But again, that's only from my first 3 weeks. Yes. So the others can probably offer some broader perspectives.
Maybe I can come in with my 1 year's experience. And I'm not only saying this because Rachel's on the call and it's being recorded, but I honestly really love my team. And the whole time I've been there, I've felt very supported and encouraged to develop. And I'm sometimes in awe, with the amount of experience that I get to work with and just the knowledge and life experience that people in my team have. And I feel like it's really helped me improve my own skill set and just improve as a person as well. So I can't speak for the whole ministry, but yeah, my experience as well to date has been really, really positive, and just feel very supported by everyone that's around me in my team.
We can go in order of years served, shall we? So Adi can go last. So yeah, echo the similar comments. I keep thinking how have I not had a bad team that I've been in yet? But that genuinely, hand on heart, has been the experience across, I think it's 5 or 6 rotations now, have been really supported to develop, have been right from the outset in a graduate role, been given really interesting pieces of work and the ability to own issues autonomously. The opportunities have been just real pinch me, how am I doing this? Experiences, from things like when New Zealand was serving on the Security Council, we had a program where the new intake could apply to rotate through the New York office at 2 weeks at a time to have experience working on the ground at the UN while New Zealand was on the Security Council. And I mean, just things like that was a total dream come true, not anything I thought I'd ever get to experience. So I realise I'm sort of talking about the mahi there, but in terms of the culture, just to echo what everyone else has said, really positive working environment, feel very well supported. And I should add as well that good work-life balance, in my experience, for the most part. There's always peaks and troughs in every role, but in a non-COVID world, I work flexibly and work from home 2 days a week. And that's something that I've really appreciated support from the ministry on.
Okay, long-term view. I think I'll take a slightly different tack here. And what you've heard from the others is definitely people, you often in our ministry hear that phrase around, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. It's the people who make the work. And particularly when you're in a small embassy, the team you're with has a disproportionate amount of impact on you. You rely on that team, not just for your work colleagues and your manager and your teammates, but they also become your support network. And you spend Christmas with them, or you spend important events in your life. Those are the people that you share it with if you're far away from your own family. So one of the words that the ministry often talks about in terms of what it values from people is resilience, because there are times when you'll be working in a stressful environment, and both there are long hours to get a trade agreement done, or you'll be responding to a natural disaster, and suddenly you're on a plane to a small Pacific island that's just been severely impacted by an earthquake or a tsunami, and you have to go and help out the Kiwis who are affected by that, or the local community that has been affected by that. And so in those moments, you really pull together as a team, but also you need a lot of personal sort of resilience to get through it and to support your colleagues. And then also, the ministry has compared to a lot of other careers, I think the ministry has a big impact on your personal life too. A lot of our people travel a lot, and some of our trade divisions, when it's business as usual, without COVID, you might be away for half a year traveling to various places. That puts a big strain on you, but also on your loved ones and your wider support network. We also have posts in very different places. So you could be posted to Canberra or to London or to Washington, but we also have embassies in Addis Ababa, in Kiribati, in Papua New Guinea, which offer a huge variety of experiences, but varying levels of isolation and challenges and so on. And you might find some people are perfectly comfortable going off and doing aid projects in some very difficult places, whereas others find, coming from a safe place like New Zealand, a country where you have a higher crime rate, to be a difficult place to live and to operate in. So these are all things to just be aware of as you embark on a career at MFAT, that it is very different, it is unique, and you're going to have some really awesome experiences, but it is difficult at times, and having that supportive culture and that resilience and having good colleagues to rely on is really important.
Thanks, everyone. There's another question here. Is there much value placed on being able to speak multiple languages, or does that not come into it much in everyday roles? So yes, we absolutely welcome applications from people who speak multiple languages. That's definitely an asset, but it's not a prerequisite. I certainly do not speak any other languages. And yes, it is something that we absolutely encourage. There are opportunities to learn languages as well when you join the ministry. Adi, did you do language training?
Yeah, so I did.
Speak to that, because Adi did language training.
Sure. So I did 2 years in Cairo learning Arabic before my postings, and that was fantastic. Basically my job for 2 years was to learn the language, and we offer that for only a few of our roles overseas, but it covers Arabic, Chinese, Korean. I believe we still do Bahasa in Indonesia as well for a slightly shorter period of time. And so through that, you go from knowing nothing about the language to being able to have a meeting on a technical issue to do with our dairy exports with the local government. So that's fantastic. So even if you don't have a language, come with an ability to learn and an enthusiasm for learning a language. But we also have shorter term language training. So for example, if you're going to one of our European posts, or like I did for Korea, you do 2 months of language training before your role. And that was enough for me in Korea to talk to a taxi driver, order a drink in a bar, and be okay in a restaurant. And that really enables you to integrate into that society a lot better, and to understand that society a lot better as well.
MFAT also offers language maintenance classes. So if you come with existing language capability, then as I understand, there's weekly classes held across a variety of different languages, together with colleagues to help you continue developing and maintaining that skill. How are we going? I think we're all up to date on the questions. Thanks everyone for the engagement. It's been fantastic to hear the different sorts of questions that you all have. I'm conscious of the time, and I'm sure it's been a long day for you all in and out of these Zoom sessions. Does anyone else have any further questions? And then I'll pass to final comments from the panel. And in the chat, there is a link to the graduate part of the MFAT website that will have information on the application process. There's some useful information around what to expect in a career in MFAT, so similar to what we've covered here today, as well as some additional perspectives from other graduates. And so as Renee says, if you've got any additional questions that you think of after this session, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So I'm not seeing any other hands, so I might just ask the other panelists if they have any final comments. Anything that hasn't been raised already? Talia, anything from you?
I'd just add, don't let yourself get I don't know, scared by imposter syndrome. I certainly had that feeling when I was applying for MFAT, even after having interned there, because there tends to be a little bit of hype around it. Like, oh, do I have to know stuff about international law, and do I have to have multiple languages, and do I have to have a law background and stuff like that? I'd say what MFAT seems to really be looking for, and I can tell just from my cohort because it's really, really diverse, is people who are just curious about the world, people who are really interested in learning other languages, people who are interested in, who are really good communicators, yeah, a whole variety of people. So if you're interested in applying, and obviously you are because you're here, and you're looking down the tunnel of that sort of daunting long application process that people talk about, just go for it. Yeah, and just see where it takes you.
Thanks, Talia. That's fantastic advice. I'd absolutely second that. And the other thing I think we haven't mentioned as well, if you do apply and you're not successful the first time, don't let that put you off. We've got a number of colleagues and people who have applied a couple of times and have been successful on the second or third time. And that might be down to a variety of things, but please don't let that put you off. Atanas, any parting comments?
To talk about what Talia said about the imposter syndrome, and I still definitely feel that at times now, even 1 year into the ministry. But I think it's just important to remind yourself that you are more than capable of doing anything that comes your way, and just to really believe in yourself. And I think that manifestation really helps sometimes in putting yourself in a good headspace, especially with graduate application processes, which I remember being very daunting only a year and a half ago. So yeah, I understand the stress that all of you must be going through right now, and just want to say good luck, and it will all be good when you come through on the other side.
Thanks, Atanas. Adi, any final words?
Yeah, thanks. Look, it really fascinating to talk to you, and I think if I think back to my time like the others, I was nervous and not really sure what to expect. So talk to people, ask questions. You've got the email address, find out. And I think, like the others have said, this is a great opportunity and you can do it. You know, we like hearing different voices in the ministry. We want to have, you know, the new grads that come and have a big impact on how the ministry works and how we see ourselves. And you can change the way the New Zealand foreign policy looks, literally overseas, and, you know, influencing it back here in New Zealand. And I think I'd also just say, enjoy your time. You know, university is a great and exciting time. You've got lots of choices to make and exciting things to decide about. But, you know, enjoy it. And before you know it, you'll be working and sitting here talking to the next lot of grads who are looking to join the organisation. So good luck.
Thanks, Adi. Yes, absolutely echo everything everyone said. I remember my father telling me that the university was the best years of your life. So when I finished uni, I was horrified to realise that they were done. So absolutely enjoy your time, and really honoured to have the opportunity to speak with you today. And as we've said, don't hesitate to follow up, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to see you guys and work with some of you in the future. And thank you so much. Ka kite.
Yeah, awesome. Kia ora, everyone. Thank you.
Ka kite.